y'all, it's Mary, and I am so excited that you're here for this month's topic, which is all about purpose. Y'all, it is a new year, and if we're not careful, we're going to be crafting goals and resolutions that aren't in alignment with our purpose. It's just honestly too easy to get caught up in the comparison game, looking at what everyone else is doing. So this month, I'm going to show you how to anchor back into your unique purpose and help you remember just how meaningful your life really is. All right, let's hop into it.
And now, your host, life and mindset coach, body love advocate, and doTERRA Presidential Diamond, Mary Hyatt.
Hey guys, it is Mary Hyatt, and I've got a fabulous episode for you today. And this is our very final episode of this month's topic, which has been all about purpose. I had a great call yesterday with my Fully Alive Circle members. We did a live Q&A. We do that every month, and we go over questions that they have about the topic of the month. And they were just like raving about how this month has really surprised them, and they just are loving it. And I'm hoping that that is the same for you guys. I myself have just been devouring this concept of purpose. And I've always been searching for that more and more, how to live that out more and more. And so it's so fun to devote an entire month on this topic. And so we're going to kind of wrap it all up today in today's final episode. And if you haven't listened to the prior 3 podcasts in this month's series of purpose, I highly recommend going back and listening to them, because every week we basically build on one after another and get deeper and deeper into the content. So the very first episode that I did by myself was called What is Your Unique Purpose? And that was a just really important foundational episode where I get into just this concept of purpose, what it is, what it's not. And I think that people felt really liberated after that episode, because it's so much more about who you are, how you live out your purpose, more than it is about the specific thing that you do or the career that you have. And so we talk about it in kind of a broader sense. And I give you a formula to create a purpose for yourself and literally walk you step by step through that formula and designing it in a way where it feels really easy to live out. So definitely go back and check out that episode. And then I had 2 guests this month. The first is always a casual family member or a friend that comes on to the show. And this month I brought on my mom, and that was a really powerful episode with my mom, Gail Hyatt. And that episode is called What is Your Purpose in This Season of Life? And she talked about being a stay-at-home mom. I have 4 sisters, so she raised 5 girls, and she's now 65. We're all out of the house. And she just talks about what it's like to have a purpose that is in support of other people, like my dad, her daughters, and how fulfilling and rewarding that can really be. So if you're a mom, if you're an empty nester, definitely go and check out that episode. And then last week I had a purpose coach, Lisa Jane, on the show. She was fabulous. And we really talked about how to intuitively connect to your purpose, how to go in first to receive messages and downloads about what it is that you're meant to do and who you're meant to be in this world. So that was a fantastic episode. Go check it out. But today, I really want to get into the nitty-gritty of the how. This idea of manifesting your purpose. Because I think that we've sort of understood this conceptually as an idea, but a lot of the questions that I got in the Fully Alive Circle member live Q&A yesterday, they were like, okay, so what does this mean for my career? How do I live my purpose out in my career? Another question that came up was, how do I do this in a really hard season of life when A lot of challenging things are presenting themselves. My kids are at home from school. Like, what does it look like to live my purpose during challenging times? So I thought, okay, for this episode, I really do want to like slow down and think about the manifestation of this beautiful purpose that we're stepping into and living out. And so, the framework that I talked about in episode number 1, what is your unique purpose? I just want to briefly cover that again because that's our mission statement. That is our purpose as it looks in a framework, in a kind of like a really clear black and white type of statement. So the phrase that I've used, and it's sort of like a fill in the blank, and you're going to craft your own unique purpose, is the purpose of my life is to be fill in the blank. That's the first part. To be, to enjoy, fill in the blank, and to do, fill in the blank for myself and others. So the purpose of my life is to be, fill in the blank, to enjoy, fill in the blank, and to do, fill in the blank for myself and others. So I shared with y'all that my purpose, and I'm repeating this because we're going to kind of like break this down today. My purpose is, I'll read it kind of in that format. So the purpose of my life is to be a symbol of love and light, to enjoy the abundance of love in all things and inspire and remind people that they are deeply loved by God. So that is my mission statement. It really is for me about letting love be the defining characteristic in my life, really making sure that I am helping others remember how lovable they are by their higher power, that it's something that they literally cannot earn, they cannot lose. They already are so lovable and so enough. So, part of the work that I do in my coaching, my one on one coaching, my group coaching, my membership, is to walk people hand in hand back to that remembrance of how unbelievably lovable they are. So, what's so cool about that is now that I have that clear, and I hope that you had a chance to, for yourself, kind of journal that out, is that I can then get to work on thinking about how I then live that out very specifically in terms of my career, in terms of my business, even inside of my relationships. And so I want to give you guys the opportunity as well to slow down and talk about for yourself what it's like to live out your purpose. This is kind of the next step that I think is really helpful, is to create a plan, create some kind of a blueprint for yourself that will make it really easy. So the question that I'm asking myself is then, how can I share this abundant love and acceptance that I feel for myself with others so that I can bring them back to their wholeness? How can I do that? That is going to be my unique expression of this mission statement, of this purpose. And so, because, if you think about it, it doesn't have to be necessarily complicated. So oftentimes we think it has to be this very clear picture of exactly what this is. But I think when we can create a blueprint, it makes it easy for ourselves. So we're not every day sort of like guessing how we're supposed to do this. And it can be just as simple as asking a question. And so I want to just take a moment to think about this, how you're going to live this out. And it really starts with understanding more about yourself, understanding your preferences, understanding the things that make you tick, understanding your individual makeup, because we're all created so incredibly differently. One of the reasons why I love like personality profiles, quizzes, tests, the reason why I do all of this work around self development and self awareness is that once we kind of understand who we are at our core, like the most authentic versions of who we are. It's much easier to craft and design a life based out of a very true version versus the expectations of others, or comparing ourselves or trying to fit in a box or a mold that someone else has given us. That's where we get into trouble. So the more that I can know myself, the more then I can show up in my purpose, because I'm not trying to live out other people's purpose. And I'll go back to that analogy of being able to put the blinders on, like a horse that's running a race, being able to very, very clearly have a narrow focus that's mine and mine alone. I'm not called to live out anybody else's purpose except for mine. And it's easy, I think, sometimes too, like once I have clarity around that, it's easy to put that up against other people's purposes and go, well, I'm not an Oprah, or um, I'm not a Gabrielle Bernstein, or I'm not a Brene Brown. These might be people that I would compare myself to. And it's like, right, because you're Mary, because you're you, and their expression of their purpose is going to look different. And I think it starts with a fundamental belief that no one's expression is more important or more valuable than someone else's. I think that we have to start ultimately with that belief, because if we start thinking and cheapening our purpose and going, well, I mean, it's not as good as so and so, or it really doesn't have that much impact. I don't have a ton of followers, or I'm not on stage or broadcast to all these people. We start cheapening and devaluing who we were created to be and the role that we're here to play. And so I think it's so important to really keep those blinders on. And so when we think about then having this self-awareness of who we are, then we can go in and choose how we put that out into the world, the medium that we give our gift, our talent, our our special superpowers out into the world. But it has to start with who you are, and then we can create that unique blueprint for this season and time. And I want to talk about blueprints here for a moment. So, a blueprint, and I do this a lot with my coaching clients, because I think it's helpful to understand what our subconscious blueprint is, and then actively choosing a conscious blueprint. And a blueprint is made up of a lot of different rules, a lot of different guidelines around how we should live our life. It's sort of the map, the plan that is created, the roadmap that then helps us live out our life. And when I think about purpose, I love this topic so much because I love thinking about, okay, what is it that I am creating in the world? For me, I shared my purpose, but for me, it's creating more awareness of our lovability, of our enoughness. And for me, it's really helpful when I have a specific blueprint so that I know how to do that. Because if you think about my specific purpose, I could like do that in a million different ways. And people do. I mean, people are helping others remember their enoughness through writing books, through leading church groups, through leading group coaching, through physical practices like yoga or dance. People are leading others back to their enoughness through meditation, through different kinds of retreats, in their social media posts. I mean, there's like literally a million and a half different ways. It could be literally just doing it with their children, reminding their children how lovable and loved they are. And that, I mean, is radical impact when you think about impacting your children's lovability. So there's so many different expressions of this, but I have to know for me what my specific blueprint is, because then that blueprint is guidance for me. It helps me stay on track. It is sort of like a barometer that I can measure everything against to say, hey, like, am I in alignment here? Am I living out my soul's purpose? Is this what I'm creating? Is what I'm building the right foundation? Do I have the right structure? Is this going to be solid? Can it have the ability to withstand impact or rejection or criticism? And it all comes down to our blueprint. It's what keeps us like headed in the right direction, following our North Star. So that's why I'm kind of obsessed right now with this idea of the blueprint. And what's cool about it is that we are going to have blueprints that change over time. My mom talked about in her episode the purpose and how it manifests different in different seasons. Like when we were little, it looked really different as opposed to now as we're adults. Like her purpose is very different than when she was raising 5 kids under the age of 10, let's say. So our blueprint changes as we evolve, as we gain more awareness of who we are, which is really cool to think about. Like the more we know about ourselves, the more we can step into our purpose in a new and different way. And so, purpose to me in this blueprint isn't about achieving something. Our blueprint is like our plan on how we fulfill our purpose. Okay. So let me say that again. Our blueprint is our plan to fulfill our purpose. So I have been geeking out on this book. And I'm blanking on the name because I had it in front of me. Hang on. Let me grab it. So it is called Discover Your Dharma by Sahara Rose. And I found her through Instagram, I think. And it's all about your purpose. And she has this beautiful concept kind of around this idea of Dharma, your purpose, and how you express it, how you live it out in the forms of archetypes. And y'all know, like, I geek out over any kind of personality thing that there is. So when she was talking about Ayurvedic, which is an ancient Indian practice, I was like, yes, please. So the Discover Your Dharma, she has this beautiful quote, and she says, your Dharma is not about the destination, but rather the journey of embodying who you are, who you truly are at any given moment. I'm going to read that again. Your Dharma is not about the destination, right? So it's not about achieving something or getting something or arriving someplace. Your Dharma is not about the destination, but rather the journey, always evolving, the journey of embodying who you truly are, your authentic self at any given moment, meaning the seasons. And so, what I love about your dharma or your purpose, your soul's purpose, is that it is uniquely yours. That's kind of the whole point of today's episode, is this idea that it is yours. You're the only one who could fulfill your purpose with your capabilities, your talents, your abilities. You are like the man for the job, the woman for the job. You are the person that can live this out in its fullest expression and no one else. So your blueprint is going to be different than anyone else's. And as we grow, as it changes, it continues to evolve and become even more and more and more clear. And that's why I love that quote from Sahara Rose, where at the end she says, we're living this out, we're embodying this at any given moment. It moves with us. It grows with us. And so it's not something that is fixed. It's not something that you create once and you never have to create it again. It's this constant sort of like looking at this blueprint and asking ourselves, does that still fit? Like, is my soul calling me to greater evolution? Like, I know there have been so many things that I've done in my life. Like, for example, I in Nashville ran several farmers markets. And at the time, I was in the process of really nourishing my body, healing my body from the inside out. And I really got on the path of local organic food. And I was geeking out over the fact that there's so much more nutrients in local food. And so I think I was like 22 or 23. I started hosting a book club. And one of the books that we read was a book called Animal Vegetable Miracle. And it was about a family who decided to, for a year, eat food that was only grown within 100 miles of their home. And they grew a lot of their food. And it was this really cool experience their family had of knowing where their food came from, knowing their farmers. And at that book club, I had the biggest turnout that I had had the entire time that I was doing this book club. And one of the things that we realized is that we don't have access to fresh local food at the time when in Nashville. And so I was like, all right, I'm smart. I'll figure this out. And I decided to open and start a farmer's market and manage a farmer's market. So I gathered together all these different farmers. And for about 3 or 4 years, I ran some like the most successful farmers market in Nashville that were community, neighborhood ran, and ended up selling them later. But at that time, that was what I was interested in. It was the knowledge that I had. It was the excitement that I felt. It was really where my soul was calling me. But there was a point, and I've had this experience many, many times over now, that about 3, 4 years in, I was starting to dread it. I was feeling exhausted by it. I didn't want to show up and do it anymore. I was feeling some of those warning signs of, hey, something is out of alignment. And it wasn't that running a farmer's market was bad anymore. It wasn't that um, I should never have done it. It was just that as I was growing and evolving, my soul was calling me to my next expression of my purpose. And it wasn't inside of those markets anymore. And it was beautiful because I was able to hear that and listen to that and ended up selling it, offering it to someone else whose purpose was so excited and ready to sort of uh, take on the challenge of running these markets. And then I was able to move into the next season and expression of my purpose. So, what's beautiful about the blueprint is that I can constantly look at it and say, does this fit? Am I in alignment? Or do I need to make some tweaks? Do I need to change my blueprint so that I have a different expression of what it is? But when I look back over time, and I want to kind of invite you to do this now, when I look back over my life and I think about all the things that I've been drawn to, the roles that I've played, the jobs, the manifestations of my purpose over time, there's this common thread within them. There is definitely an element of helping humanity, of bringing joy to other people's lives, to introducing in that love. Even in the farmers market, it was like I wanted nothing more than for my farmers and vendors to succeed. Like it was so much about them feeling appreciated for what they were contributing to our world in the form of this beautiful food. And so if I look back even in high school and the ways that I was a vice president in my junior and senior class or a president of my youth group, I was always leading. I was always the one to go first. I was always the one to take the initiative. And that is because of my unique makeup, who I've been designed to be. I am that teacher, that mentor, that leader. And so when I look back, even though the way that was embodying itself has been different in different seasons of my life, I've always wanted to contribute, to lead, to teach, and to mentor. I mean, I look over what I studied in college before I dropped out, which was psychology. For a time, I was going to be a teacher. I mean, it's like I can look back and see these themes, these threads that are similar over time. They're just going to express themselves differently. So let's think about for a moment, bring some greater self awareness to your own unique self that's going to be expressed in your own unique way. And think about your personality. So, whether it's like Myers Briggs or the Enneagram or your archetypes. Last month we were talking about femininity and we got into the feminine archetypes, whether it's your astrological sign. I mean, like I said, like can geek out for hours, your human design based on, okay, how do I operate in the world? How do I work best? How do I process and assimilate information? I think about the Colby test that I love that talks about that, how you work in the workplace, how you initiate or follow through with different projects. All of those are so different depending on who you are. So like for me, I am a quick start. I love projects. I'm not fabulous at follow through, which is why every month on the podcast is a different topic because I love variety. I love changing things out. And I used to think of that as a deficit for a long time, as a defect that, oh my God, I can't just like focus on one thing. Whereas now I appreciate that about myself. I love that about myself because I have a lot of knowledge on a lot of different topics. I have a lot of tools and experiences in my toolbox that I can assist my clients with, my one-on-one coaching clients, as they have stuff that comes up. I'm like, ooh, okay, what tool do I need for this? Or for the podcast, what topic do I want to talk about next? But once we kind of get to know our strengths, if we think about the what is it? Gallup, your core strengths. That's really helpful to understand because then all of a sudden I can start to understand my purpose through the lens of my innate ability, my like superpowers, all of that, rather than trying again to like look like a Brene Brown or look like an Oprah and feeling that frustration of trying to fit inside this box that wasn't created for me. So I want you to think about looking back over the history of your life and examining how you are naturally wired, like how you naturally work. Maybe some of the jobs that you've held over decades, the roles that you've played, the things that you've been drawn to, those themes in your life, and taking a moment to reflect on the uniqueness of you. And I was talking in the live Q&A yesterday with my members. One of the things that came up was the fact that depending on what we value in our lives, this is really fascinating to me, our purpose is going to express itself differently. So even though, like, let's say a lot of people have a similar purpose of bringing in more love to the world, reminding people of their enoughness, based on who they are and what they value, it's going to look really, really different. So because one of my highest values is variety, that's going to look very different. Loving people is going to look very different than somebody's whose value is consistency or certainty. Where for me, variety is really high on my list. Freedom is really high on my list. I love having time freedom. I love having financial freedom. So part of how I live out my purpose is I want to be financially independent and have enough money. This is why I love talking about money. I want to have and make money because it equals freedom for me. It helps me live out a value that I have that's incredibly important to my soul. So I love thinking about, okay, what are your values? What is like most important to you in your life? What do you champion in your life? So maybe, like I said, it's something like mine where it's freedom or variety. Maybe it's connection. Maybe that's like really important for you to be connected to other people, where my extroverts, even introverts, can have a lot of like deep connections and intimacy. It could be love. It could be security or consistency, like I mentioned. It could be a value of yours is authenticity. It could be positivity. It could be contribution or service. And so, depending on what you really, really value, you're going to prioritize different things. You're going to make space for different things. Like if you did not value variety, you're not going to seek it out. You're going to probably live a life that is really based and created from a sense of routine, a sense of maybe efficiency or strategy, where freedom and variety, like me, are two of my top values. Like every day is different. I want every day to be different. I don't have a set morning routine. I don't have a set evening routine. I really live into and feel into my days very intuitively, checking in, asking what I need, again, pulling out those different tools. So I think this is really cool to start thinking about how your values are going to impact your purpose and how you express them. They're going to be part of this blueprint, how it's created for yourself. So I know that a lot of you guys are huge fans of the Enneagram. So I thought I would just for a second, like take this into each number on the Enneagram from the point of values, what matters most, so that we can begin to see that, like, depending again, who you are, your unique personality, and what you value. So we could do the same thing for your astrological sign. We could do the same thing for your strengths. We could do the same thing for your Myers-Briggs, but I'm going to do the Enneagram just because I know that best. But you can look at this and go, okay, given who I am, how I relate to the world, given my values, all of a sudden I can kind of start to see and connect the dots and go, oh, well, no wonder I live out my purpose in this way. So kind of think about what Enneagram you are, what number you are. If you don't know, you can go to the Enneagram, ENNEAGRAM, the Enneagram Institute, and take a free quiz there. They're not sponsored by me or anything, but that's a great site. You can take it and test it out. There's 9 different numbers. And we talk about this often on the podcast. So if you're a regular listener, you are well versed in this already. But the first Enneagram is number 1, the perfectionist or the reformer. And their highest value, get this, their highest value is integrity and goodness. Integrity and goodness. So again, if you think about whatever their purpose is, whether that is to, to be a symbol of love and light, to enjoy the abundance of all things, and to help people remember how lovable they are, which is my paraphrase, my purpose. If I were a 1 and I valued integrity and goodness, it's going to come out through that lens. Now, as a number 2, which is the helper and the giver, or the mentor, which is what I am, I test as a 2, the highest value that the type 2 is going to have is love and altruism, contribution, connection. So that makes total sense for me because I am a 2, and how I'm going to express this is in relationship with other people, is in teaching, mentoring, and contribution. If I were a number 3, which is my wing, every number has like a secondary wing. Number 3 type is the achiever, the motivator, the performer, the one that is on stage, the one that is speaking, the one that is leading. Their highest values are worth and advancement. Worth and advancement. So again, based on who you are and the value you have, the values that you hold, it's going to be expressed, your purpose is going to be expressed differently as a 3. So think about that. If you test as a 3, if you're a high achiever, imagine how that's going to come out. You're going to be high producing. You're kind of probably take your purpose into your career, what you create, what you give out, the content you produce, the impact that you're having. More is better. Constantly up-leveling. It's going to look very different as a 3 than as a 2 who values love and altruism. As a 4, number type 4 is the individualist, or another way of saying it is the artist, the romantic. Their highest value is significance and authenticity. Significance and authenticity. So you can begin to see that if those are my values of significance, being known, being seen, being special, and really helping people to be their truest selves, if that's my highest value, everything I'm going to do is going to be through the lens of Are you being your truest self? I'm probably going to judge people whether they're being their truest self because that's a high value. It's most important to me. As a 4, if I were a 4, is authenticity. Am I being authentic? And thinking about how that might come through as my purpose, how that expression would shift as a 4. The fifth, number 5 Enneagram, type 5, is the investigator, the thinker, the researcher. These are the ones who are getting in and fact finding before they ever make a decision. They want to have all that kind of knowledge and information. And their highest values are wisdom and insight. Wisdom and insight. So before they live out their purpose, they're probably going to research how to do it. They're going to think about the best way of doing it, gathering wisdom and knowledge from people past, present. So it's kind of cool to think about for a 5, the investigator, the thinker, how they might live out their purpose. Now, type 6 is a loyalist, the visionary. And sorry, not the visionary, the loyalist and the skeptic. Sorry, I skipped ahead. The loyalist and the skeptic. Their highest values are community and security. So they're not going to be massive risk takers. They're not going to value a lot of variety. So the way that they live out their purpose is probably not going to look anything like the way that I would live mine out, because they value a sense of safety, a sense of security. They're kind of pessimistic. And so they're going to be protective a little bit. And so that's going to look different. That might be, living out their purpose for their children or for their community, their church. It might come through that lens. And then we go to type 7, which is the enthusiast, the protector. And sorry, y'all. I'm like looking at my screen and the words are so small, I keep messing up. The type number 7 is the enthusiast and the visionary. Type 7, like the life of the party, the fun one. And their values are freedom and openness. Freedom and openness. Don't hem me in. Don't strap me down. They need expansive energy out. So they're going to be the ones who are like full of life, living this out to the fullest, very expressive. It's going to look very different coming from a 7 than if it's coming from a 1 who's really focused on goodness, integrity, perfection. Now, then we move into the type 8, which is the challenger or the protector. They care about truth and justice. Their highest values are truth and justice. So these are the types of people that living out their purpose could look like an activist, for example, somebody who is a champion of a cause. Whereas for other numbers, that might not be part of how they live out their purpose. And then number 9, last type, number 9 is the peacemaker, the mediator. Their highest values are harmony and connection. So they're not going to be like the 8, the challenger, the protector out there challenging things, getting new bills written, protesting, being an activist. No, the 9, their values are connection, harmony, and peace. So the way that they're going to live out their purpose is going to be keeping the peace in some form or fashion. So I think it's really cool to start looking at our values as it relates to our unique personality, whether that's Enneagram or some of the other tests that y'all love. We can still look at, okay, what do I value most in my life? And then how does that translate into living out my purpose? This is going to be important as different types of elements that make up this blueprint. So when I'm thinking about my purpose, I'm looking at my values, what matters most to me. I'm looking at my specific talents, my superpowers, my strengths, the part of me that nobody else has. This is like my secret sauce, my magic. Part of an element of my beautiful blueprint is also going to be how I express that as a medium, whether that is through writing or speaking or creating art, organizing, selling, strategizing. These are the things that I'm just naturally going to be good at, that I feel like just come easy to me. Like speaking, even though I've had to learn to do that well. And I've gone to different places to learn how to be a better speaker. I had to get over a lot of anxiety. At the end of the day, when I am living in alignment, my truest self, I love to speak. Like, I just feel like it comes naturally to me. So the way in which I'm going to live out my purpose includes speaking. And then also, how I want to be in service. We have to include this idea of service. And sometimes I think we can forget about that. But I think when we're living not only for ourselves, but our purpose includes others, which I hope that that's the case for everyone, given the fact that we live in community, given the fact that we live in a world with other people, this is what helps us connect to others. And I truly believe that when we are connected to our soul's purpose, there will always be an element of giving, generosity, impact, service. It's this beautiful like give and take. And then also kind of a final element that our blueprint is going to include, and I think this is like really encouraging and like, yes, I'm so glad this is the case, is that it includes enjoyment. There is something that we have to have, which is this sense of joy, this sense of excitement, this sense of curiosity, this idea of being drawn to something. It's got to feel good. Because when we're in our purpose, there's this element of flow that happens that just lights us up. And it doesn't have to always be so hard. I think sometimes when things feel like there's a lot of resistance and it's really hard, we're not in our soul purpose. Again, it's like we're living out somebody else's. We're trying to manipulate ourselves into somebody else's calling. And in reality, ours, because it's what our souls were created to do, the expression of that, even though it may call that we step into a higher version of ourselves or evolve, there's a sense of knowing of like, yeah, this is mine. Like it feels good. There's flow, there's ease to it. And so I want my blueprint to excite me. I want it to energize me. I want it to be life giving. It's like this intersection of proficiency and passion. Like I'm proficient, I'm good at it. And yet there's this passion there. That's how I want to manifest. That's how I want to express my purpose into the world. That's how I want to fulfill my purpose, is from this state. So the question that I have for you is, how are you going to embody your purpose specifically in this season of life? You know, what are the clues, the messages that you have received as you've been thinking about your purpose this month? And it might be something as simple as, how am I going to live out this love, this value, this harmony? How am I going to live out this purpose easily? Like we talked about in episode number 1. And it might be that it comes as a download, as how you live out your purpose is connected to your career, to the way in which you work, the services that you offer, the medium that you choose to deliver your message into this world. And so my encouragement is that you take about 10, 20 minutes to journal about what you've heard in this podcast episode today, thinking about your purpose, your blueprint, seeing what themes are consistent in your life, thinking about what you value most, what's most important to you, thinking about your personality, your unique expression, and begin to craft and cultivate and design this blueprint for yourself, for your intention of living out your soul's purpose, making it feel exciting and joyful and easy and in flow and in alignment with your truest self, putting on those blinders where you get to live out your purpose and no one else's. So y'all, I have loved being with you this month. I have really enjoyed this topic of purpose. And if you have enjoyed it as well, I encourage you to share this episode, share the prior episodes with friends, with family on your social media, tag me, whatever you want to do. I just love getting this word out. And I'm excited to be with y'all next month for a brand new topic all about body acceptance. So It's going to be fantastic, fabulous. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the episodes as they release. But just as a reminder, the purpose of life is to be grateful, to be great, and to be full. I'll see y'all next week. Bye. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you got some amazing nuggets to take home and start implementing into your life. And if you're looking for the show notes and links, head on over to maryhyatt.com/show. And if you loved it, why not bring your girlfriends along this journey of becoming fully alive with you? Just give a quick share of this episode to your social channels and enjoy those debriefing convos with your besties. Thanks again, and I can't wait to connect with you next week.